Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel Test Automation Mantras. In today's video, I'm going to cover DDL and TC statements. In the last session, I covered DML and DSL. DML is a data manipulation language and DSL is a data select language. So we covered in the previous session as how to select a data from a table, if you have to insert, update or delete data from a table. So that was covered in the previous session. In today's session, we are covering more on the structure of the table. So DDL statements are going to cover create, alter, drop, or truncate of a table. So for example, if you would like to create a table, so the first we are going to cover DDL. So DDL statements, which is going to cover, say, create a table, then we can alter a table, we can drop a table, and we can truncate table. The other part we are going to cover is TC statements. We won't have much examples, but TC is more around, say for example, you have inserted data into the table, you would like to save the data, you can use commit, or if you would like to roll back the data. There are a few other options called like a save transactions, or in Oracle it is called as a Savepoint. Let's start with the first statements, like a DDL statement. So how do you create a table? Say for example, let's create employee table. I already have an employee table, so I might create another table with a different name, say employee 2. So we need columns for employee table. Say we are going to give a name as employee name, then we are going to give first name, last name, you can have address, or you can have, say, city. Along with that, you can add more details like, say, which department that employee belongs to. So in the employee 2 table, these are the, say, initial columns we have. Now we need to define the data type. So what will be the type of that column you want to create into the table? So employee number, so it's number, it's going to be integer, say for example. The first name, last name is going to be a string, so you can define as a varchar 2. Same thing for last name, you can define as a varchar. Address is also going to be a string, so it can be varchar. City, department number is again going to be an int. So first you need to, when creating a table, first you need to have a column names, and then you need to define what are the types, what the column will be of what type. So need to define that. The syntax to create a table is create, you have table, then you specify, say, table name, say I said employee 2, and in the brackets you can define the column name, that is going to be, say, int type. Then you can define, say, first name, and similar to that you can define other columns as well. So I think it's going to be in here, it's going to be, say, varchar. I believe that doesn't accept the varchar 2. So let's create first name as a column. Then you have last name as a column with the comma separated, the address, and then city. So we can change that varchar 2. Looks like that is the syntax in Oracle, so we can change that as well. Instead of varchar, it's varchar 55 characters, and then we can insert the department number. So now your table structure is ready, you can go and create. So to execute that, you can just press F5, or there'll be execute button on the top. The command is completed successfully, that means the table is completed. So you can use select statement to just check whether table is created successfully or not. So this is employee 2 we have created. select start from, hit the keyword, so employee 2, execute that, and you can see that table is created with the structure with the column names what we have created. You can go and insert the data into it, as I mentioned yesterday, but we primarily focus on the DDL statements first, and then we go and create the data if we need to. Say, for example, you have created a table, but you would like to add an additional column to the table, so you can use the alter statement. So, say, for example, I have an email address as a column, which I forgot to add. So what you can do is use alter table and then this table name which you want to alter, and you want to add a column. So say, for example, email, and then you specify same way as you specify varchar2. So it's going to be varchar, say, you can specify the length, whatever length it is going to be, select it and execute the statement. You can see the command completed successfully. Now if you go and query the table again, you should be able to see the email in the list. If, for example, you have added a column by mistake, say you don't want city to be part of this table, you would like to drop the table. So what you can do is, again, you have to alter, because all the DDL statements works on the structure. So we are working in structure of a table. To drop a column, instead of add, you alter the table. Then you say drop column, and which column you want to drop is, say, email here. You can mark as unused as well, or you can just drop the column here. So say, for example, that column email is dropped from here. Now just add it again, run the select again, you can see there. So to create a table, it was create. To add another column, you can use alter. You can drop the column as well from the table using the alter statement. Now say, for example, you don't want the employee 2 table. It was, say, created by mistake. You can use a drop statement to drop the structure of the table. So drop table, table name, and execute that. And if you will go and select star from employee 2, if you run that query again, you are going to get that object not found. So you can see that it says object name invalid, so it doesn't exist. Let's create it again just to understand the another DDL statement. Let's try to insert some data into the table. So I hope you remember the syntax from the last session. So insert into table, and then it is going to be values, what you would like to insert into the table. We have all these columns like employee number, F name, last name, address, city, department number. As I mentioned in the last session, that you can insert it, but depends what is this int column. So in this case, we don't have any constraints being applied, so or any sequence being applied to auto generate that employee number. So you have to specify the value for the employee number. Say, for example, I specify a name here, say test, last name, test2. So I'm just putting a random value here. The address is going to be, say, 244 Side Street, something like that. And then city is going to be, say, Delhi, say, for example. And department number, since again department number also doesn't have any dependency, or it's not coming from the department table, so there are no reference being created for this particular column. So in this case, it's going to be straightforward. Whatever value you're going to put, there won't be any errors on this particular column. So just to understand it the better, how you can insert or add any data to the table. So just go and insert that. I hope there is no issue with it. Now date record is inserted into the table, as you can see. So it is done successfully. Now going back to, say, for example, you have inserted the records, and just see the difference between truncate and drop. Say, for example, you write, say, truncate table and table name. So if you do that, there is a difference. When we did drop table, table name, it dropped the structure of the table. But now if you do truncate table, Can you imagine what's going to happen? If not, let's try to execute and you see the difference. So I have truncated the table, only the data got deleted. But when you do the drop table name, the table structure also gets dropped. Say, for example, if you do that, and if you go and run the select statement again, you will find that objects also gets dropped. So that's the difference between truncate and drop table. Let's create it again. Now rename. So if you would like to rename a column, it's not easy in SQL Server. It's straightforward in Oracle and other databases, but in this SQL Server, you have to use a SP package to rename. So that, say, for example, you would like to rename table, say, employee 2 to employee 3. You would like to rename that table from this to that one. What you need to use is sp_rename. Then you have to specify what is the current table and what is the new table name, what you would like to have. So say, for example, this one, and you can go and execute that. There is a syntax error, looks like. Oh, sorry, I just missed, I think, a comma here, I believe. Yeah, so it will give a message that since we are changing a table, there might be dependencies of this table, could be in procedures or could be in triggers or somewhere else. So in this case, just giving a message that it could break the scripts and store procedures. So you have to be careful before you rename that. The other way to, so this was renaming of a table. If you would like to rename a column, say, for example, since it is a employee 3 now, because if you go and query employee 2, you will not find that object, but if you go and query say employee 3, you will have the table. If you would like to rename a column in a table, again, you can use sp rename. So it's employee 3 dot, say, for example, email. You would like to rename that email underscore address. So sp rename the table dot the current column name, then table dot the new column name you want to rename to. Sorry, I think we dropped the column here. So what we can do is we can add a column first using the alter table, add email. So we have added that, and if you try to run that employee 3 select, you can see that email column is there. And if you run the rename, you should be able to, you will get the similar message here. It's just a caution here. So the column name should have been renamed from email to email underscore address, as you can see. So it's taking, I think, table name as well. Let's try to rename that. I thought it takes a table name, then that column name. So for example, this one, it should take, yeah, it should be taking that name of the table name dot column name, right? So this is alter, drop, and truncate. The other two statements I was going to talk about, I'll check on this one why it is creating with the table name. For the TC statements, as we mentioned, commit and the rollback. So if you're using any tool, there are default settings into the tool where the commit is by default take. If it is not take, like by default auto commit is off, then what you do is whenever you are inserting a record, if you close the session, that records will not get saved. So if you insert, you have to actually save that record by using a commit statement. So now I have to see if, since I have added one more column, so let's see how many columns are there. We have to insert the values accordingly. So now we got employee number, first name, last name, address, city, department number, and we need to add the email address as well here. So say test@this.com, for example. So when you're inserting this, you need to explicitly type the commit But in case you are doing a multiple insert updates and updates, the rollback is mainly useful if there are many statements. Say there are 2000 statements you are running, and after 500 statement the insert fails or any statement execution fails, you would like to roll back the whole transactions from the start. So in that case, rollback is going to be useful. To see an example of, I can just quickly show an example of how it is going to work. Is I have a simple example. I have taken, say for example, insert statements. So whenever we are doing these statements, this is the example. So whenever you are using rollback or commit transactions, what you need to do is you have to use begin and end transactions. So in this example, say for example, I say begin transaction, insert records here. Say, let's pick the updated values, what we have to insert as per the columns. And we can change, say this is 4 and it's going to be 5 and 6. And we can just replace these as well. Let's keep the numbers different. Update this one as well. Now, if you're going to run this, what's going to happen? The initial 2 transactions should get saved in the database. And I can give another number to this one. And these 2 statements should get rolled back. So that's the expected. If you run or execute these statements, so if you go and query the select statement again now, let's query that at the bottom, and we try to run that query. Sorry, it says employee 3 doesn't exist. I thought we have that object created already. Is it employee? Did we rename that? No. So this was the employee. You remember we ran these statements here just to see the structure. Let's try to create, say, employee 2 again and change this 3 to as a 2. I think we just did some action in between and we lost the table. So say, for example, we have a table now. Just to confirm, we do have employee 2 table exists before we do that execution of the statement. So we do have that, and we don't have the email address column. So either we can add it rather than changing the statement. Say, for example, go back, alter, add email. Okay, this is email. Sorry, employee 2 again. Run that. Command is executed successfully. Just to cross check, we do have all the columns. So we have employee number, first name, last name, address, city, then department number, and the email. So now we do have all these statements. Now all the 4 statements are executed. I think something is going on here. It's doing a rollback, but that's not the rollback what we are doing. We can add the email address here. Let's try to say execute that. We have employee 2. What we are doing here. So begin transactions, we are inserting a record into employee 2 table. So we inserted that, and we have the employee 2 records here, and we are just trying to do a rollback here in this case. Begin transactions, rollback, and then commit transactions. Why it is not working? So we do have 2 records, as you see. So let's try to say do this transactions, begins and rollback. And if we do this one, just run that, something is happening here. Just doing a rollback here. Shouldn't do the rollback. It just rolled back of the transaction. Okay, let's have a look. once again. So employee 2. So we did, so it should be created. If we just insert these two, it's inserted successfully and it's created. We need to have a look at why rollback. Rollback should actually roll back, as I explained the concept wise. It's inserting these two records. You commit it, the data will be saved, but when you insert these two, you're rolling back the transactions. That means these two insert should not work. So it should not be any records into the employee 2 table. That's the concept of the TC. Now there are a few more things you can consider. Say, for example, you create another table as a department. And same thing, you can try from home, like create a department table. So this is kind of an exercise you can try at home. Department table with 4 columns. Say department number, then department name, then you have department location, or you can say department. I think let's have 3 columns mainly. These are primary columns you can use. Cannot think of another column as of now. So create a table with these columns. Just when you're creating a table, keep in mind you need to understand the data types, what it is going to be. Then what actions you perform is try to say alter a table to add new column. Then rename the column using alter. Just try these practices at home. You should be able to grasp what we have discussed just now. So rename the column, then try to practice difference between drop and truncate. What it does, what's the difference between these two. And then what you can do is try to look at the commit and rollback. And in my next session, I'll have a look why rollback transactions is actually truncating that employee 2 table. It shouldn't do that. It's just simply a rollback of those 2 transactions. I'll have a look and get back in the next session. So that's all for today's session. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave your comments. Thank you.